What a great out of well over 100,000 graduates from James Madison High School. I honor my co-honorees. I think we should all be proud of this honor. However, much more important than this award is how fortunate I feel I have been to have grown up in Brooklyn during a wonderfully simple time. A time of innocence, both here in the USA and especially in this great borough. We did not have to endure the concerns of World War II as our grade, our class. We were too young to understand the effects of this tragedy. We were mostly protected from the horrors of the truth as we lived in a world of our childhood fantasies and games. We just made up songs about the evils of the Nazi enemy leadership that mostly disparaged their body parts. I would sing them for you today, but my grandchildren are here today. And I don't think that it's appropriate. But however, for those that remember, Goebbels had none at all. It was the early to mid-50s, and the effects of the Holocaust, though whispered about, but not fully discussed. It was not until the Eichmann trial in the 60s that most survivors openly talked about the abomination they had to endure. As a result of teenagers in the 50s, we had no relatives, those who had no relatives that went through this tragedy, were able to experience the joy and safety of what I have said many times was an amazing childhood. I lived on the corner of Kings Highway and Bedford Avenue, and I walked 2 blocks to PS 197, and then later I walked 2 blocks south to Madison as a freshman. We did not need to be driven by our parents to any after-school activities. For 7 cents, we took the bus, and I remember having parental authority at the age of 8 to take public transportation. A startling thing if that happened to me. It did not happen to me. But what was the childhood like with me? My life was the schoolyard at PS 197 and the after-school activities. We had hard-working teachers who gave up themselves and their students. We visited our aunts and uncles and grandparents on the weekends without the chore of coordinating our weekend schedules. We were fortunate then. Our thoughts were similar to those of children of today. What with our studies, activities, our passion for sports, and our favorite teams. But we had something else, something that they don't have today. We had the boys of summer, the Brooklyn Dodgers, a team and community that has stayed with most of us throughout our lives. And yes, in addition to that, we had something very special. We had the freedom to wander, the freedom to walk the streets at almost any time of day without the fear of danger. In our loving household and healthy household, my brother had the chore every weekday night at 8 p.m. to walk to the highway to buy both the Daily News and the Mirror for my father at 4 cents each so he could read it before he went to bed at night. No one thought for a moment that it would not be safe for a teenager to walk those 10 blocks. I also had the good fortune to play basketball for Jamie Moskowitz, who coached here at Madison for over 40 years. At one time, he had the most wins of any high school coach in America. He is presently in the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield and in New York City for that achievement. Jamie was a great high school basketball coach who was fantastic at teaching the fundamentals of the game. He taught us how to position ourselves, to rebound, and how to play defense. But alas, there was one part of Jamie's game, like many other coaches who were into the emotions of the moment, had difficulty with. He was very excitable during the game, and sometimes things have been confused. I vividly remember an incident during my senior year when needing to make a substitution. Coach walked down the bench, looked at Carner, yelled out Goldberg, and grabbed Gecker. It was a memorable moment when all 3 of us jumped off the bench, ran to the scorer's table to replace that one man. Each of us was sure he was the one that Coach wanted to replace Barry Mulder. And Mrs. Moskowitz told me the story that she and Jamie went up to West Point as he was refereeing a game there one Saturday night. It was a close game with lots of emotions, which obviously spilled over to the referees. Coach was halfway back to New York City when he realized that his wife was not in the car with him. He had left her behind. He rushed back to get her. What Mrs. Moskowitz did not tell me was where Jamie was allowed to sleep the next 2 months. I learned the value of sports and teamwork that has lasted me my whole life. I learned how important the team concept is, and it has carried me forward in my involvement with Maccabi USA and the Maccabi World Union. That's what has brought me to this podium today. For it is sports and the team concept that has enabled us at Maccabi USA to accomplish our goals within our mission statement. An example of these goals happened when we were in Vienna, Austria in July 2011. So you see, we hold the world's third largest international sporting event, the Maccabi Games, in Israel every 4 years. But in addition to that, we hold regional games, the European Maccabi Games, the Pan Am Maccabi Games, the Australian Maccabi Games, each year in a 4-year cycle. I was at a meeting in Vienna a few months before the European Maccabi Games when I realized that this was going to be the largest gathering of international Jewry in Vienna since the Holocaust. I attempted to convince other people to come to these games. It was important to support the 9,000 Jewish residents who were left in Vienna. But most people I spoke to would not attend as they did not want to go to Austria for any reason whatsoever. As Austria was noted to be one of the most anti-Semitic countries in Europe. I felt that would be a mistake. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you a story about the opening ceremonies. 10 months ago today, July 6th, 2011 in Vienna, Austria. The opening ceremonies of the European Maccabi Games. And where were they held in Vienna? They were held in the Municipal Plaza, the City Hall Plaza, that same square, where in the 30s, Hitler announced Anschluss to the Austrian people, in that same place. In July 2011, the square was lit, and there were 8,000 people in attendance. And it was a beautiful sight. But you couldn't help your guts from churning to know where you were. 8,000 people in the stands, and 2,000 people marched in from 18 countries, including the Israelis. The president of the country, Heinz Fischer, the present president, stood up and addressed everybody, these 10,000 people, 8,000 people in the stands and 2,000 participants. He addressed everyone and apologized to the Jewish community and welcomed us. The mayor apologized to the Jewish community and welcomed us. And 10,000 people stood in that same square and sang Hatikva. And hanging from that same balcony that Hitler announced Anschluss, that same balcony that you've all seen the black and white footage, is a 60-foot Star of David, the flag of the State of Israel. I said to Talia, my wife, if our supporters back in the USA were here at this moment, I wouldn't have to say a word about what we do and why we do it. I would tell you that it's important, through sports, that we make this effort, and that you understand how important it is for the Jewish people to show their pride. There is no way that would have gotten that many people together if it were not for sports. Because sports is this powerful hook for young people which has weaved itself into my DNA and has allowed us to utilize this interest for the benefit of our community. In addition, I'd like to just make another statement. I think it is appropriate to inform you that it is now 40 years since the Munich 11 massacre of Israeli athletes at the 1972 Olympics in Germany. In all these years, we have been unsuccessful in our attempts to get the International Olympic Committee to observe even one moment of silence, not one moment of silence. We must and we will continue these efforts for the benefit of these slain people. I want to thank you all for coming to this wonderful event. I want to thank Martha Weinstein-Outlet, Dick Kossoff, and the selection committee for understanding the value and importance of what we do at Maccabi, and by honoring me and our unique organization with this humbling award. Many years ago, a young scribe wrote in my graduation yearbook, the log, the following words: "Dear Ronnie," and I think you're going to know what I'm going to say. "America is your nation, King's Highway is your station. But never forget PS 197 and James Madison High School, where you got your education." Trust me, I never forgot it. Mom, Dad, Bruce, my brother, Graham, I walked the highway today. I went over to PS 197, and now I'm here at Madison. I'm back home in Brooklyn. Actually, to be perfectly frank, I don't think I ever left. Thank you very much.